Namaskar, Sawadee Greetings on the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. As many of you would be aware, the birth anniversary is being celebrated since last year as Parakram Diwas. Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose was, of course, one of the tallest leaders of the Indian national movement. He had a strong connection with Southeast Asia, particularly with Thailand. It was in 1943 that he established the provincial government of a free India in Southeast Asia. And this government represented 3 million Indians who were living outside of India at that time, including several thousand people in Thailand. Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose was greatly charismatic. He was a great orator. He was a very able organizer. And he was able to put together funds and get together people in huge numbers who responded to his call in Southeast Asia. In Thailand itself, several thousand people responded to his call, and several of them joined the Azad Hind Fauj. They helped the INA in terms of money, in terms of jewelry, which they donated, and the voluntary service that they did by either joining the army or by providing support and logistics to the INA members. Several women also joined the Rani Jhansi regiment and also the Balak Sena, which he raised in this part of the world. And there are still many who were associated very closely with the Balak Sena in Thailand. Netaji also donated much of the funds that he collected back to the countries from where they were collected. For example, in Thailand itself, he donated money to set up a hospital, as well as he gave money to the Chulalongkorn University. So in the last few years, the Government of India has taken several initiatives to honor the memory of Netaji. Including the creation of museums with several places with which he's associated. And last year, of course, his birth anniversary was named as Parakram Diwas. This year, the Government of India has decided that Republic Day celebrations from now onwards will begin on the 23rd of January. Which is indeed a very befitting tribute to the memory of Netaji. I'm very happy that the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center is organizing a program to honor Netaji, and several people who are very closely associated with the Balak Sena and the Azad Hind Fauj will be sharing their reminiscences with the audience. And I'm very happy with this initiative. Thank you very much. Dhanyavad. Jai Hind.
Namaste, Swadika. My name is Aparna Patwardhan. I am the director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Embassy of India, Bangkok. Today, India celebrates Parakram Diwas, or the Day of Valor, to mark the 125th birth anniversary of an icon of the freedom movement of India, Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. His contribution to resisting colonialism and gaining freedom for India will forever be remembered and celebrated. The Government of India has just announced that the Republic Day celebrations will now begin from the 23rd of January to include the birth anniversary of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, which is a step towards commemorating important aspects of our history and culture. The government has taken several steps at preserving the heritage of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. In 2018, the Indian government marked the 75th anniversary of the hoisting of the tricolor and the forming of the provisional government of Azad Hind, which administered the Andaman and Nicobar Islands during World War II by Netaji Bose. The Prime Minister renamed 3 islands in Andaman and Nicobar. The Ross Island was renamed as Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose Dweep, the Neil Island as Shahid Dweep, and the Havelock Island as Swaraj Dweep. The Indian National Army was organized with a lot of support from the expat Indian population living in Southeast Asia. The Indian diaspora living in Thailand played a big role in the freedom struggle led by Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose through the INA. Apparently, Netaji visited Thailand 8 times. He set up an INA camp in Chonburi, Thailand. Several Indians from Thailand joined the INA and the all-woman Jhansi Rani regiment as well. Many children at the time signed up as Balak Sena members and did their bit for this freedom struggle. To pay tribute to these unsung heroes of the freedom struggle, we'll be sharing the accounts of some of the surviving members of the INA and the Balak Sena and their family members. We have Mr. Sheetal Tiwari, INA soldier, and the members of his family sharing accounts through a video. Mr. Tiwari's father donated his large farm at Chonburi to Netaji for an INA camp. We also have the family of late Mrs. Parvati Pandey, who served in the Jhansi regiment at Singapore, Balak Sena members, and then the family members of the now departed members of the INA. We hope these accounts of selfless sacrifice will refresh the memories of the freedom struggle and serve as a reminder that our freedom was not easy to achieve and there was a price to pay. India is grateful to Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose and to all the freedom fighters who freed India from the clutches of colonialism. Thank you.
जब हम लोग सुनबरी में थे तब तक खबर आए हैं लीग की तरफ से कि सुभाष चंद्र बोस आ रहे हैं बैंकॉक। गांधी ने बोला कहाँ पर रहेंगे, उस नाम लोगों में रॉयल होटल के पास भाषण होगा। वहाँ से गांधी हम लोग को लेकर सुनबरी से शीतल पवारी भाई गांधी को लेकर आने के बाद भाषण शुरू कर रॉयल होटल के पास भाषण देने के बाद पिताजी खुश हुए और कागज निकाल कर हिंदी में लिखना शुरू कर दिया। जगन गांधी छोटा बच्चा भाई उनको लेकर चिट्ठी दिया, मगर जो बात कर रहे हैं ऊपर उनको ले जाकर दे दो। गांधी ने गया वहाँ देकर आज पूछा ये क्या है, बाँच नहीं पाते थे, शुक्र था उसने बात को सुना है कि हम तन और मन और धन देश के लिए कुर्बानी कर रहे। बोला कौन सा है धन्यवाद तिवारी में खड़ा हुआ भाई, क्या आपके पास है? हमारे पास जमीन है, गायें है, 2 पहाड़ी के बीच में हमारा जमीन है, रहर का पेड़ बोलते हैं, वहाँ क्या बन सकती है? और कितना दूर पर है आपका घर? 150 किलोमीटर पर है बैंकॉक से। आपस में बात कर कल चलेंगे हम। कल के बाद हम लोग सब वापस आ गए। करीब 10 बजे के लगभग में सुभाष चंद्र बोस और 2-3 गाड़ी लेकर आए वहाँ पर, सीधा जमीन के पास चले। पिताजी था बताइए ये जहाज जब दोनों पहाड़ के गुफे के बीच में ये हमारी जमीन पिताजी से जमीन में अरहर का पेड़ हुआ बात करने के बाद सुभाष चंद्र बहुत खुश है और बोला यहाँ कैंप बनेंगे छुरी मांगकर अरहर का पेड़ काट और बहुत कड़ा से बोला मैं जय माँ दुर्गा कैंप बनेगी इसी जगह पिताजी बहुत खुश हुए माँ हमारी वहां से दही लेकर आई सब खिलाई चीनी और दही था उसके बाद चुप भी खाए और सब 4-5 उसके बाद बड़ी कम मिलेगा वापस उसके बाद हमारे घर 2-3 महीने के बाद कोई मद्रासी रंगरूप थे वही लोग आए थे अरहर का पेड़ देखकर काटने के अरहर काटे पेड़े गए सब निकाले गए तो थाई वाले मिस्त्री आए सब काट के बाद ठीक है कैंप बनाना शुरू कर बनाने में लग गया हमारे कल 2-3 महीने लग गए कैंप बन गया अच्छा तक आस्ते आस्ते सब जुटने लगे कुछ फौज पुराने लोग आए थे ब्रिटिश के जमाने का भी कुछ पंजाबी लोग भी आए थे पिताजी तो तन और मन धन दिए थे उसमें से कुछ पंजाबी खिला के करते थे कि क्यों दे रहे अपना धन देश के लिए आजादी के लिए दे रहे तो यही बात कैंप बनना शुरू हो गया पिताजी बहन को बोला तुम जाओ झांसी रानी में भर्ती करो वो अपनी साथियों को बुलाए 2-3 को बुलाकर झांसी रानी में गए हम भी उस समय छोटा था बहन तो उनसे छोटी थी 1 साल 16 साल की थी क्या चली गए 16 से चले के बाद और हम लोग भी हो गए और भाई थे गांधी पर सेना में हो गए कैंप बन गई खुशी शादी हुई सब फौज जुटने लगे ट्रेनिंग लकड़ी का बंदूक था राइफल लेकर सब मार्च कर रही है और खुश हल्ला होता है हमारे गाँव में कुछ 300-400 आदमी हो गए मैं जापानी भी है कैंप बनने के बाद तैयारी हो जाने के बाद अब खास करके परेड शुरू हो गई परेड होने के बाद से हमारे गाँव में कितने 2-3 महीने हमारे घर में ऐसे लकड़ी का बंदूक उसके बाद असली बंदूक फौज का अफसर आने लगा कैंप बन गई जापानी मास्टर भी खड़ा हो गया अंग्रेजी बनाने के लिए जापानी भाषा पढ़ाने के पिताजी बड़ी सब ठीक हो गया जो जंगल खत्म हो गया सब फौज आ गए हम लोग का आजादी हो गई कैंप बनी हमारे का 5 बने थे 5 जगह 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 कंट्रोल
towards the end.
तैयारी हो गया था जाने से तो फिर वापस हो गए चढ़ाए में हमारे कभी बात में बहन आई तो ये हम लोग घाट पर होने के बाद पता चला कि सुभाष चंद्र का मोटर हवाई जहाज गिर गया और मर गया यही दुखी होकर हम लोग बैठा थे घाट पर उसके बाद से अंग्रेज आए और इंडियन अफसर के साथ लेकर आए तो घाट पर खड़ा हो गया, आने नहीं देंगे। तो इंडियन ने बोला कि भाई कैप्टन गणेशी लाल रखे, उनसे जाकर बुलाओ, बुला कर जाए, इसको आने दो। आने के बाद आधा घंटा तक बात हुआ उन लोगों से। गणेशी लाल भी साथ आए, बोले इस चल रहे बंदूक तुम्हारे पास रख, हम लोग लड़ाई इस बात में खत्म हो गया, बंद कर सब पिस्टल कर दिया,
सरेंडर हो गया।
जब वहाँ बैठे थे, जब जमीन की देख कर आए हैं हिंदुस्तान के लिए कि यहीं आज फौज आएगी, यहाँ से सिंगापुर जाएगी, हम लोग हिंदुस्तान के आज़ादी में रहेंगे और हिंदुस्तानी आज़ादी होकर रहेंगे। सुभाष चंद्र बोस पहले बहुत सब खुश हो गए। तो जब आज़ादी हो जाएगा तब लाल किला पर बुलाएंगे।
अच्छा, नाना को लाल किला।
साल में आज़ादी होने के बाद लाल किला पर।
Yes, when Subhash came back from Germany, invited by Ras Bihari Bose to become the leader of IIL, Indian Independent League, or they call it the All India Independent League. So that was considered the exile government of India, the first Indian government. So they decided to make Subhash the first president or prime minister of India, whatever you may call. And Ras Bihari gave that to him when he arrived in Singapore. He had a free hand after that. He arrived in July. The date is not exact, but I have it. July 1943. So if you notice the date, Subhash was never in the action of what is called as INA. You must separate Azadi, must separate INA. INA is not really Azadi, but they use it as a symbol. Yeah. INA was created by the brainchild of this intermediate officers, Netaji Subhas, and the combination of what was known as the Indian National Council, which was formed by Swami Satyananda. And the other end was the IIL chapter of Thailand, which was leading by, at that time was led by Gyanam. And slowly they combined. But there were other Indian groups that had their own clubs, Indian clubs and so forth, that were quite wealthy. Maybe Sindhi group, Sardar group, Punjabi group, normal Indian group. So many groups, and they were not really united that well together. This Mr. Iwachi, Major Iwachi, the intelligence officer, was very clever. He brought them all together at a Chinese tea shop just for an informal meeting and asked them, why can't we join the Indians together in Bangkok? At that tea shop only, when we said, listen, if you can't get together, can we make a group that as one, form it as one, which was eventually accepted as the Indian National Army. This was in 1941, far beyond what Subhash was supposed to be. But then he was clever enough to use them as intelligence sources, send them all over Southeast Asia, including Hong Kong, to gather all the intelligence information about the British movement. And then they planned their invasion accordingly, using a lot of these expat Indians during the invasion through Padang Mesa, through Malaysia. And they were part of the forces that captured Malaysia, captured Singapore, mainly. And when they captured Singapore, they got a lot of ex-British Indian army men. And they tried to convert them, but none of them would come to the Japanese side until Ras Bihari Bose assigned a captain whose name was Mohan Singh to be the leader, and he asked him to raise a force of 20,000 strong out of these captured soldiers. And that's how it all began, and he became the head of INA. Not Subhash yet. This is still 1942 now, when they captured Singapore. So later on, when Subhash arrived in July 1942, before he came there, he went to Tokyo, and they all had meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister, all agreed that Ras Bihari proposed him to be the president of the IIL East Asia Division. He was very clever. He did not say Subhash would be the president of all India IIL yet, but at later stage, it's all pronounced that he was proclaimed. Well, it's a complex history that was broken up so bad that everyone just assumed everything happened in Singapore. Totally wrong. Everything happened in Thailand. The King of Thailand invited him to lecture some at Chulalongkorn University, and even given him a property to open up the Indian Cultural Club, which is Thai Bharat Cultural Club, and he assigned his best man and gave him the title Swami Satyam, Mr. Prafulla Kumar. That's how it all began, I think, and it slowly accumulated into different, but all happened in Thailand. For some reason, Thai was the center of this movement. And I think history has left it out. Even though Subhash came here 8 times, recorded in the Thai history 8 times, but none was recorded in Indian history that Subhash was here in Thailand even once. Especially the most important one where he attended with his father, where we gave up the man. That was the biggest missing piece of history. And we are not recognized for that. It has a lot to do with politics too. I'm glad Mr. Modi is bringing up all this.
मार्च होता था पर पहले 1-2 सिपाही होती थी
March.
चटक से पूछ करो पहला नंबर का पैरदार और सब सिखाती थी तो पुराने ब्रिटिश जमाने के वो सब लोग थे वही लोग सिखाए
The ex-British Indian officers who were trained.
पहले के गाना था झंडा चढ़ रहा था तो दूसरा गाना था चैन की बरखा वर्षे भारत की राह जाके झंडा चढ़ा उसके बाद बदल गया तो तन मन में हम लोग सब भूल गए
It's all lost. My mother would remember, but she used to sing to us when we were babies. So
हम लोग का सबका जन्म बैंक का हम लोग पहले 28 में ऐसा 18 साल उम्र है तो 28 का कागज आएगा फौज में जाना पड़ेगा 21 नंबर तो हम तो वहाँ चले गए 18 आ गया पिताजी के पास कागज तो मुझसे पूरा आने के बाद हमको इंडिया बना
basically his father did not make him Thai citizen. He was born here, he should be Thai citizen. His father just made him into Indian citizen so that he joins the Indian forces.
ट्रेन सिखाता है पढ़ाई सिखाता है
Balak Sena.
बालक से जापानी भाषा पढ़ाता
That's the one for us.
हाँ तो सबको सिखाते थे मार्च करने को सिखाए
वो बालक से कहाँ से आते थे बैंकॉक
बैंकॉक
अच्छा
पंजाबी का लोग इंडियन
सब आते थे
पिताजी कोเป็นबालक से ही
some other guys was very nice even though we were born here lived here we are more of a Thai citizen than Indian but as time went by we went to school in India so we feel connected after some time and then all those stories that were related earlier by them by my grandfather by him or my mother or my father start connecting and it becomes really something that you say, hey, you cannot let it go, it's a part. And that's when I think things start clicking and you say, you're kind of, at first you're kind of confused. Are you Indian or are you Thai, at first. Then when you begin to connect your both, actually, you have to realize how to blend them together at one time or the other. And not to lose it, find the roots. Main thing is, what is your root? And that's where it started. It becomes more and more important to us. Not impacted, that's right. But there are, I think there'll be a few left in India, right? If you can count them on your fingers. Thai camp is totally separated from the rest of Azadi. And it's been kept out of history book for some reason. Strangely, in the 1930s, 40s, before the war, the Indian expat and the Indians that were living here were quite wealthy, secretly wealthy. They were doing very well, trading and any other things. Exceptionally, my grandfather's father had 100 acres, doing it himself. So it was a unique thing that he could own a piece of land in those days. But today you can't, if you were not Thai citizen. At that time you could do it for some reason. And with their wealth, they did start building homes in India, businesses in India. But most of them didn't go back. They gave to their family. But at the same time, they kept a lot of wealth here. So when Subhash came and asked for it, they all were willing to get into that movement, donated with the high hope that they're going to win the war this time.
गणेश लाल एक दफा नाराज हो गया था बादशाह। गाय चढ़ती थी जब वो कैंप बना नहीं था तो गाय से पहाड़ों पर से चढ़ के 100 गाय के ऊपर खेतों में चल जाती, तो रहर का पत्ता खाते हैं, फिर दूध खाते हैं, घास वगैरह। तो कैंप जब बन गया तो वही गाय उधर कर चले जाते कैंप। यह कैंप है, गाय का खेत नहीं है कि तुम गाय हिलाकर चलाएंगे यहाँ पर। तो पिताजी ने बोला कि भाई जाकर उनसे जरा बोल दो। उनसे बात किया कि भाई ऐसी बात है, गाय यहाँ पहले चल रही थी, ये जंगल था, और अब खौज हो गई तो गाय की आदत पड़ी है, 100 गाय ऊपर है, 2 एक चली आती है। कैप्टन आप नाराज हो जाते हैं, क्यों ऐसे नाराज होते? गायें कौन बात करती है, गलती हो जाती, बहुत नाराज हो गया था, ही नहीं मानते हो तुम लोग। तो फिर अच्छा माफी मांगते हैं, जो गलती हो गई सबसे नहीं आई, तो रोज तो आना ही पड़ेगा। तो 100 गाय में 2-4 चली जाती, बहुत नाराज होता था गंदी, ये फौज है क्यों गाय आ रही है।
For him, he also, even during Chonburi camp time, he just described many occasions that in front of his house, okay, I'll let him be late, it'll be better.บอกไปเรื่องพวกเราไปสงครามเนี่ยคนแบบพวกเราที่ใส่เซ็กซี่
पहले जब फौज 300-400 आदमी रेड कर खत्म कर दिया सिंगापुर के लिए, तो बहुत से ब्राह्मण होते जनेऊ निकाल के नीम का पेड़ था सरकार की लगाकर जनेऊ बांध दी कि हम लोग जा रहे हैं, वापस आएंगे तो अपना अपना जनेऊ लेंगे। वापस तो कोई आए नहीं, आए चले गए हम जनेऊ उसी में टूटता सब बहुत जनेऊ निकाल कर पूरा सफेद हो गया तब फिर
women from Tamil side that were in Jhansi Rani. He was very progressive in his thoughts, and he kind of aroused the whole mass movement, that's how he said, even including the feminine movement. So he allowed them to be part of the action. And in that, my mother told me that actually there were, in percentage, at the later stage, there were more Tamilians in the Jhansi Rani regiment. That made up the core quite a lot of them that joined from mainly from Singapore and Malaysia. Told us a lot about the war, and at first she thought it was glamorous to join the army and to fight for India. But when she got into Singapore, when the action really started, when the bombs started being offloaded by the British and the Americans, the bombardment began, everyone had to run for their life. Many people died instantly. She would tell us, even when we were young, that this is how they did it. Well, it's something that we don't need to mention here, but for her, it was still something that she was proud of, and she said, if we didn't do something like that, freedom would happen. That's her thought. Yes, that was a price to pay. And the difference is that my mother went straight to Singapore the next day with the Subhas troops. Once she reached there, she started right away. And she stayed there for almost a year and a half. More. It was 43 August, I think, when she left. And she returned. I think he came in July or August. Definitely between July and August. That can be found out. But then later on, she came back after Japanese surrender, and she ran. It took her, like she said, almost 2 weeks from Singapore to get to Bangkok. And during that time, I would assume that they had bombed Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all of it, so that was August. So it means she spent exactly 2 years in Singapore. And that's why, actually, when he knew that condition was getting worse, and he was present in the field after the fall of Imphal battle, he knew it was all over. And he started withdrawing the force. But he also had the force already in Burma with Jhansi Rani, who was going to take action. And he didn't. He was actually supposed to come back by himself with his troops and leaving the girls to follow by train. He refused. I remember another Jhansi Rani regiment lady telling the story how she was accompanied by Mr. Bose himself all the way until the train was knocked out and they had to march on foot to the hall. And he made sure the last woman was in front of him. So once they arrived in Thailand, then he felt okay. And then he went on to Singapore. He made sure that all the women from Singapore also get home.